Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm back with Daniel Naor again to dig deep on some topics that are unique and specific to this week, but can definitely help us whenever you're listening to this episode. Today, we're talking about soul synergy, deeper connections with ourselves and others. And this is a topic that I think goes to the core of human existence, and also why humans should be concerned at all or interested at all in spirituality. That there is a part of us, I think, that are on a spiritual journey that we think, oh, I wish I could go back and not take the pill. I wish I could forget that everything has a purpose and there's cause and effect, and I'm responsible for me, and I have a correction, and all those things. Sometimes we just say, like, wouldn't it just be easier if I was mindless and didn't have to think, why is this happening? What can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? And so much of the world exists without that awareness. So today we're looking really at the connections with ourselves and others, how we navigate those connections, why they're significant and we shouldn't ignore them, and of course, how we can learn from and grow from them. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we aim to provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by utilizing the wisdom and tools of Kabbalah, and every episode giving that the strategy, the tools to navigate the coming week. They're really timeless tools and timeless teachings that you can use whenever you need them. And I think because this period, some people who are listening are probably going to remember this. Students ask sometimes at the end of the meeting, what should I be focusing on right now? With the energy that's going on, is there anything I should be more mindful of or aware of? And I think across the board in this time period, again, that we call the Omer, that tends to be triggering and challenging more than most of the year, I tell people to really put tolerance, kindness, and compassion above all else. That really to look at other people, to look for the light in other people, to find the common ground, to seek connection over disconnection. When in this time, disconnection is so much easier. People seem so much more agitated, defensive, on guard, critical. You don't have to open your computer or your phone to see what's going on in the world. And it's also happening in families and communities and neighborhoods. So it couldn't be a better time to have this conversation. Daniel, so first of all, thank you for doing another episode with me.
As always.
I love the idea in this period, but obviously at all times, as using the idea of using compassion and curiosity as a tool, both to have a deeper connection for ourselves and with others. How do we start doing that?
Yes. So I would like to start with a quote that can set the tone for the continuation of this conversation, because there's a lot to say about it and we only have that much time, but I think this sums it up pretty well. And it's a quote from Plato, actually. And it says that the soul in its process of self-transformation will need to learn to see itself in another soul.
Wow.
So there's so much in our experience as human beings, as souls in this lifetime. There's so much to learn about ourselves endlessly, and so much to learn about others, and through others to learn about ourselves. The teacher of our teacher, the Rav Berg, Banwein, told his student, our teacher, the Rav, he said, the purpose for which I've started this learning center, the Kabbalah Center, or for which it was started from his teacher, Rav Ashlag, said that there's so much to learn. There is so much to learn about the universe and the creation. There's so much to learn about the journey of our soul and the process of our soul, that if a person would truly understand how much there is to discover about ourselves and who we really are, a person would have no time whatsoever to waste their time and energy on judging others, on complaining, on looking outside of themselves and comparing. There would be no time for that. So it can take a lifetime and lifetimes to truly know ourselves and leave alone others. So the whole purpose of why even the Kabbalah Center was created was for people to come together to look inside, to learn about themselves in a deep way. And I think it's so much appreciation for how much there is to learn when we understand that how little of who we really are we're actually connecting with. We're connecting to a very small part that makes us what we call us, what I call I, the I. So, as you said, Elisheva, in connecting with ourselves and using tools as curiosity and compassion, well, now we unpack a little bit more about curiosity, is the assumption that we don't know who we really are. Right? And the assumption that I know who I am, that's the biggest trap and it's the biggest lie. And that is what's kind of makes our curiosity, die off our curiosity and the desire to further explore. Right? So I think that is very important. And continuing with that and questioning the I, we find that there can be many different I's. There can be many different selves, so to speak. So in Kabbalah, we do learn that, the true, we call it our true essence, our true self is our soul, which is an aspect of the light of the Creator, and it shares the same essence. And even within that, there are paradoxes, right? Because the light of the Creator is only a force of sharing, but we made up of a desire to receive. So there's already the first paradox. Who am I? Am I part of the Creator infinite force of sharing? But there's a part of me that has also needs and wants to receive. So we were already created from the get-go with huge paradoxes. And on top of that, we have different experiences. And from these different experiences and different lifetimes, as we learn in Kabbalah, because we learn that there are reincarnation, previous lifetimes, and even just from this lifetime, from our experiences, we develop different identities. So if the I, as an 8-year-old, experienced something that was overwhelming and was too much, I can develop a personality that shuts down. So there's a part of me then that shuts down every time things get overwhelming and I just go into denial. In Kabbalah, we call these parts klipot. Elisheva, I'm not too familiar with, I've been on a couple of shows, but I don't know how much, you and David have talked about klipot, if that needs to be explained before.
David has mentioned it, but it's worth giving a 30-second explanation about what that means.
Okay, 30-second explanation of klipot. Klipa is a shell, and we're talking here about a spiritual entity that is formed by our reactive behavior. So when we have a fear or we shut down, we taking the energy from our soul and we're handing it over to like a spiritual parasite inside of us that feeds off the fear, that feeds off the insecurity, that feeds off the anger, whatever that reactive compulsive behavior might be. And it builds up a thicker wall and shell between me and my soul. But it's not just a wall, it can also start to develop its own false identity or its own identity. But that identity usually serves a purpose. It's trying to protect us. It's trying to maybe motivate us to make sure that we don't become lazy or perceived as lazy. So most of the time, and you can imagine how many of these klipot we have. A person can have multiple klipot, the klipa of stinginess, a klipa of shutting down, the klipa of resentment, the klipa, and so that's what we call we diagnose or we call people, oh, they're
You're a control freak.
Yeah. Or we're saying like, oh, they have multiple personalities, and we think that there are only few people that have multiple personalities and that there's something wrong with them. Well, let me share some news. We all have multiple personalities, but most of us, many of us with those personalities are somewhat still functioning, but we still have those multiple personalities. So you see, it's a little bit more complex than saying, the I, the self, the soul. What the more important question is what is ruling and governing my actions, my thoughts? Is it really aligned with my soul, with my essence? Or are there other identities and klipot in Kabbalistic terms, or parts that are running the show? And so most of the time when and if I haven't explored myself enough and I don't know of all the different parts of me, and I haven't established a relationship with these parts. And what does it mean? We can actually communicate with these parts, and it's very important to have a communication with these parts. Communicate with my inner child. Communicate with my part that is sarcastic. Communicate and see, like, you're part of me, but you're not defined by me. I'm not defined by you. So how can we start to establish a conversation, a relationship with all of our parts? Is starting with curiosity, like we said, but the second part is very important, is the compassion. Because within there are many parts that we have inside of us that we are ashamed of. There are parts that we have inside of us that we don't truly want to hear out what they have to say. And so we neglect them, we deny them, but they want to be heard. Some of our parts carry a certain pain and they want to be expressed, they want to be heard. And if we don't listen to them, it can go into extreme, and then a person can go into extreme drug abuse or extreme shopping addiction or an extreme, because that's the way for them to express themselves. So if I'm willing to gather up the courage and to look at all of my parts, the vulnerable parts, the difficult ones, the shameful one, the one that I feel guilty for, and look at them and say, like, what are you trying to do for me? What are you trying to protect me from? When did it start? What is your story? Right? So instead of trying to break that part, we befriend it. And it does something, it can do something very interesting for us when we start to get aligned with these different identities. And I'll give you a personal practical example. I started a while back to work with a klipa of mine that is, again, these klipot are like the spiritual parasites, and they take over. And so they give us a distorted reality. They feed us false information about others, about ourselves. And it drives us to take action sometimes that can be hurtful for us and others. And sometimes they're doing things because they think that's the best thing for us. So I started to work with a klipa of mine that I called it the general. My klipa of the general. I gave him a name, I gave him an identity, right? And that general is that part inside of me that is super harsh, critical, and always not good enough. Harsh, critical, not good enough, and try to motivate me with harshness, with criticism. And so once I started to become more aware of, first of all, to distinguish, okay, this is a part, but this is not, it's a klipa, it's not my true essence. And so I can have my soul talk to that part that was developed and say, like, okay, curiosity, compassion, what are you trying to do for me? And can you maybe, do you mind motivating me in a different way? Can you, before, and this is what I told this part, before criticizing me, can you remind me of my greatness at least? And, this is something that can be worked with and is very beneficial. That's the first part, Elisheva. I know I talked a lot. I'll give you a chance to ask questions or to reflect back on and to elaborate more. But this is the part where I'm saying, like, to work with ourselves before we can really form true and meaningful connection with others. Because if I don't know all of myself and have explored it enough, the parts that I haven't explored inside of me will clash, because everybody has also their klipot, and they will clash usually, and they won't allow a true connection. But if I start the pathway of curiosity and compassion with myself, then it will be easier for me to be curious and compassionate with other people's klipot that might be triggering mine. Does it make sense?
It makes sense, but at the same time, how can I ignore my relationships while I do that work on myself?
Well, who said we need to ignore?
No, I'm saying, like, before you said before that we need to do that work ourselves before we can get, I don't know what the word was, we can even look at our relationships with other people. So you're saying, you're not saying,
right.
I'm saying I still have to be
I don't
married
say
and have
isolate
kids.
yourself, go on a mountain and come back when you're perfect.
Yeah. That I think is one of the biggest, I don't know if the word is complaints or criticisms about the spiritual work, is that spiritual work would be so much easier if I didn't have to deal with other people, right?
Correct.
There's, doesn't matter if you're talking about your romantic partner, your spouse, your kids, your parents, your friends, that it would be so much easier to work on myself if everybody wasn't around.
Right. And going back to that Plato quote, right? We'll need to learn to see itself in another soul, right? So we need it. Yeah. So I should rephrase, you're right, what I said before. Not that we cannot begin, but the more we do the work on exploring all the different aspects of ourselves, the better our connection also becomes. And it's a process, obviously, right?
Well, that's something that I found really helpful in navigating personal growth and transformation, right? You may have a part of yourself, a klipa, that rears its head around certain people or under certain situations. And it isn't a contradiction to work on that within yourself while also asking another person to be mindful of the way they speak or the boundaries that you put up, or being sensitive about something, or meaning it's possible to simultaneously do your own personal work and also engage others in a more compassionate and constructive way. You're not telling them to change. You're not telling them what's wrong with them, but you are asking them to be mindful of where you're at in that process, so as to be a help and not a hindrance.
Right.
That all of your spiritual progress goes out the door when a certain person walks in the room. I know so many people who feel that way. And Kabbalistically speaking, that person that walks in the room that makes them completely unconscious, uncaring, unkind, there's so much value in the relationship with that person, spiritually, emotionally, and generally speaking, I mean, in all aspects. So I think it's also important to look at, if not that we're here to heal anybody else or do anybody else's work for them, but not to negate the value of spiritual friendships and partnerships in the work that we do on ourselves.
Yeah, because the more I open myself up to another person, the more I'll be able to understand myself and see parts that I didn't see before. Right? So we need connections. We need others. This work cannot be done alone. And of course, people are messengers. So if we're walking through life just trying to protect ourselves and doing things by ourselves, not going to work, right? If we're walking through life welcoming everybody as a messenger, it carries a message for us. And I think I might have mentioned it before, but the idea of, like, when people realize, oh my God, it's like everybody's a narcissist around me. Well, oftentimes people that are attracting narcissistic people around them, that carries a message, right? And what is one possible message in it is that You know, if you are incapable of seeing yourself, you will attract people that only see themselves. So of course it pushes your buttons, but it carries a message. And you see that part within you reflected in them. That which you are unable to do for yourself, you see it in an extreme way in others as a mirror to remind you, hey, like you're a people pleaser. You're trying to save everyone around you. You're doing so much, but like, are you actually valuing yourself? Are you really seeing yourself? So that can be a reminder. So that's what we mean by we see ourselves reflected in others.
I was teaching a class a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about proactive conversation, how to communicate, talk, have difficult conversations in a proactive and conscious way. And one student brought up an idea, you know, somebody that's just like, there's nobody to talk to even, yet, you know, this person is constantly causing trouble. Is it okay to ignore them? And I know what I answered. I would love to hear. I mean, you brought up the narcissist and different personality types that we might find we're attracting. How would you respond to that question? You know, you have somebody that just kicks up dust, you know, drama, likes to be the center of it, likes to egg others on. And I think in that particular situation, it might have been a family member, so it's not so simple as cutting them out of your life. How would you, given everything you've shared about the internal personal work that we need to do, plus the value of the people around us carrying those messages, is it ever okay to ignore? Is there ever a situation where there isn't a message for me?
Ignore? No. I don't think it's ever appropriate to really ignore because it comes up for a reason. So, and whatever it brings up needs to be looked at. Now, how much energy and time I want to allocate for that, that's a different thing, right? So I might not be needing to be busy with for a whole week or the whole day and thinking about it. But ignore is never, in my opinion, ignoring is never really a solution for this, right? Rather to see, okay, what message does it hold? And as you said, it highly depends on who the person is. If it's a stranger on the street, obviously a different conversation to have than if it's my mother or my brother or whoever, right? So like we said, family we cannot exclude for sure. And more important, as we learn in Kabbalah, than what to do, most of the time is not a question of should I ignore? Should I not call them? Should I limit my time, or should I go there? Should I visit? It's rarely about what to do. Kabbalah is helping us to reflect inside, going back inside, right, and see what is my emotional reaction to this? What does it bring up inside of me? Because the whole reason why externally there are things that come up for us is to look inside. So if I'm trained to look inside, or if put it in a different way, if I'm not trained to look inside, I'll be stuck in the what should I do? But that's not really the point. Once I truly look inside, extract the lesson and integrate it for me, and I feel that internally I'm not reactive to the situation, meaning the person doesn't really push my buttons anymore, maybe even to the extreme opposite, where I can start to feel and see into their point of view and have compassion, or at least respect their point of view. I might not agree with it in the way they express it, but I can understand their point of view. Then what to do will show up organically, naturally. I will know what to do once I'm not reactive to it anymore, and then I'll be able to know. Okay, maybe I need to, instead of talking to them an hour on the phone, I'll talk to them 5 minutes on the phone, or instead of visiting them every day, I'll just connect with them once a month, right? So the what always comes after once I look inside.
And that's basically what I said too. I was just thinking in
Yeah.
terms of what you're sharing with us, what would be the best approach. But the light is the light is the light.
Yeah.
But something that I do want to make sure we get to, because I think you said it so beautifully, last week when we were talking about systems and structures and rules and the laws of the universe and whatnot, Kabbalistically, all of that exists to get us to a place of love, of oneness and connection. Why is it so hard at times to establish love and connection with others in a lasting way? Why do our relationships go up and down like that? And what is it that gets between, we strive, you want to be closer, you want to have a more greater feeling of bonding and circuitry and connection with the other person, but something's always getting in the way. Yeah. What do we do? How do we navigate that?
Yeah. One of the things that can be contributing to that is we're starting with the essentials and the basic. And one of the essentials and basics in any type of relationship is to truly see who is in front of me. You see, in order to establish connection, yeah, we started with the first part, is exploring and knowing who is the I. But the next part of it is to see who is the other person. I heard this quote the other day, or I read it somewhere, I don't remember where, but it said that you and I are one, and I'm the one. So I don't know if it makes sense to our listeners, but for me, what it means is that so many times we are going into relationships and we don't see the other person. We see the I. We only see ourselves. And sometimes another component that can blind us to form a connection, because for true connection, I need to see the other person. And what do I mean by seeing it? We talked about it in other episodes, I think. One aspect is to know their world, to see the world from their point of view, and to know that they don't see the world the way I see it. They come from a different upbringing, they have different experiences, and their experience, or my experience, is not better than theirs. It's just different. And I need to adapt to that. I need to be flexible enough to see, We cannot judge people according to what we have experienced. We need to see it what they have experienced. And so this is one aspect of seeing another person. But sometimes what else we can be blinded by is when we're driven by a certain goal that relationship would have for me. And what do I mean by that? Maybe a practical example. If I come together with a person, let's say my goal is, one of the goals through this relationship is to have financial stability. I just talked to someone today about it. We had a session and we explored their family field. And her grandmother only got married because she came from poverty, and for her, that man meant stability. So, question we asked, did she really knew who she was marrying? Was there real connection? Or did she see the man or that man only as the function of stability? You see, I'm just giving that as an example, and that's maybe an extreme one. But we all have like the behind, in our unconscious, every single person in our life, there's who they are, but there's also the function that they have for us. And sometimes all what we can see is the function that the person has for me that makes us blind to see who they really are, who is their being. So the function blinds us in a way, but it also makes us feel that I have this. For this grandmother, it was, I have stability, I have you, and thereby I have stability. But I don't have connection with you because I don't look into your being. I look into your function and I look what I have through having you. But I'm not able to be with you. So this is a lot of time what's causing the disconnect, or what makes connection so difficult, although inside we all crave love and connection. But if we're blinded by our unconscious goals that we have through or sometimes it's our children, right? I couldn't have something in my childhood. So now I have kids, and now I want to manifest through my kids something that I didn't have. So now I'm using my kids to fulfill a need that or a fantasy that I couldn't have, but I want to have it for my kids. But who are my kids? They're their own individuals. They're not mini-me's. They're their own beings. So if I'm blinded by the function that they have for me or the goal that I have, I won't be able to form a true connection with them.
Wow. That's so powerful because, I've heard it often, sometimes we confuse love and need, right? I think it's a similar idea. I love what you do for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean I love you who you are.
Exactly. Getting goosebumps, as you say.
No, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with yourself, to come to that realization and to recognize it, to see that that's maybe how we've constructed some of our older relationships with people, longer lasting relationships with people. But I think part of the beauty in the teaching is that that's meant to be transformed as well. That doesn't, just because it was, doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. And so the work of this time period, part of it for me is also, we spoke about this when we did the New Moon of Taurus event here in Los Angeles, the idea that in the month of Taurus, you led a brilliant workshop about connecting to the perfect version of ourselves, not perfect in terms of, perfectionist, but the completely evolved, transformed, healed, corrected, complete version of us, that who that person is shines most brightly for us in this month. So I feel like what you're sharing, it may seem almost like, well, now what? Okay, I see that I have work there and I need to do this and I could shift this and this deserves to be healed once and for all. But that the potential of that healing is so much more clear this month. And to use that connection to our perfected self, I know it's a very abstract concept, but the Kabbalists teach that there is a version of us that has gone through the process, that has already transformed all the lifetimes, collected all the sparks, done all the work, and is just waiting for the current us to get with it, to catch up. And so this is a time of year that we can connect to that version of us, borrow from it, draw strength from it. It's already been done on some level, and to use that strength to get there in our current selves right now.
Yes, beautiful. And to be excited about, because if the connection we had so far, like to reframe it, right? To see like how much more connection is waiting for me to be explored, right? How much more richness and closeness and intimacy am I yet to explore and to experience? It's exciting. It's not a thought that should depress us. It's once we see it, and like you said, we have the courage and we're honest with ourselves. But the flip side of that, then when we do that, see like, wow, there's so much more that I can explore about you. There's so much more connection to be found and closeness and fulfillment that we're to extract from this relationship. I thought I can only, because, right, I thought I can only extract feeling safe from this relationship, or I thought I can only extract to fulfill an unfulfilled dream of mine, but there's so much more to extract, to experience or fulfillment from any of our relationships. So to start to get excited about the potential fulfillment that we are to experience from every relationship, leading again with, just as we explore within ourselves, with curiosity now towards others. And what does it mean? Can be asking more questions. And when someone is talking to us, and most of the time, the people that are closest to us is that we take for granted and we assume that we know already.
Right.
And to really like assume that I don't know, and ask more. And what do I mean by that? And what do you mean by that? And are you saying this? Like, give it more space and exploration. And of course, as we said, leading with compassion as well. So yeah, just wanted to excite us about the possibilities and the journey of getting to know others better, and outside of the role that we have assigned for them, and in for the sake of establishing a closer and richer connection.
Right. It's not always comfortable work, but the reward far outweighs the risks of being uncomfortable in it.
Yeah, agreed.
Beautiful. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. I just want to let everybody know that as we get into the summer months, I know it's not summer in the whole world, but it is in the Northern Hemisphere. And Weekly Energy Boost is going to shift to a summer mode, offering weekly episodes still, but shorter weekly episodes so that you have some consciousness and guidance and direction for the week, but not in the extended format that you're accustomed to. So starting with next week's episode, you'll find a shorter version, more bite-sized, more concise, more concrete. And hopefully it will reach everybody as you get into your summer mode, traveling, off of school, just out of the routine a little bit. So we're really looking forward to sharing that with you and hearing your feedback. You can always drop us a line at energyboost@kabbalah.com or through our website, weeklyenergyboost.com. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and follow us there to receive additional content to support you as you do this work throughout the week. At our website, you can find out all about the things we're talking about, as well as click the donate button and support Weekly Energy Boost. And as always, please share this episode. If you haven't already, press pause, rate and review us wherever you're listening. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.